My name is Gill Phillips and I'm the creator of Whose Shoes, a popular approach to co-production. I was named as an HSJ 100 wildcard and want to help give a voice to others, talking about their experiences and ideas. I love chatting with people from all sorts of different perspectives, walking in their shoes. If you are interested in the future of healthcare and like to hear what other people think, or perhaps even contribute at some point, Wildcard Whose Shoes is for you. So today's podcast is very different. I'm excited to see where it leads. Regular listeners will recall that I recently had an amazing conversation with my good friend Dorothy Hall about age discrimination in the NHS and how one of her life-saving treatments stopped arbitrarily when she reached the age of 80. This would have been highly detrimental if Dorothy had not taken matters into her own hands. The podcast, episode 64, has really taken off and is proving to be an interesting experiment in terms of sharing your experiences with the NHS through a podcast. Will it have more impact than making a complaint? Dorothy is my role model for ageing. She has fingers in pies. She makes things happen. She always needs to have real purpose in her life. Dorothy has many friends. I think you always do when you stay active and connected. Perhaps setting up a coffee shop, a sewing group and a book club have helped to keep Dorothy connected in this way. Anyway, recently she introduced me to her friend Dulcie Matthews. Dulcie is 88, so Dorothy is the youngster at a mere 82 and a half. Dulcie is also as feisty as hell, so I can see why they are such good friends. I obviously don't know Dulcie so well, but I'm busy reading one of her published books that she kindly gave to me, From Paradise to Eden. The book is fascinating, her evocative memoir, which chronicles her experiences growing up in Coventry during the 1940s, witnessing firsthand the challenges and resilience of her community during the war years. So what an honour it is today. They have driven over to my house and are joining me live in my recording studio, otherwise known as my dining room table. They're going to tell us a bit about their lives. What is it like to be in your 80s? And perhaps how the perception of self changes or stays the same as you get older. How do you have purpose when society is so often telling you that you're past it, too old to be useful, on the scrap heap? So I'm basically planning to let Dorothy and Dulcie chat, and I'm sure it will be a fascinating conversation.
Thanks for the opportunity, Jill. Doing the podcast I did on inequalities in health was a bit of a revelation to me in thinking through what motivates you at 80. And one of the things that motivates me at 80 is I've got so many friends who are 80 plus. And they are a huge support to me because none of us see each other as society sees us, but we're able to talk about how society sees us. And one of the things that I really value Dulcie for is she's got such insight herself. I've known Dulcie a very, very long time. We have a history going back to when we were both young mums, and I lived near to her sister. And then we had a period in our lives where we lived separate lives in different parts of the country and did different things. And we developed careers in different ways. I became a member of the bureaucracies of England in being a social worker. And Dulcie developed her creative side and wrote books and did all sorts of things that I would have never dreamt of doing. And at the end of our lives, due to circumstances, we've come back together because Dulcie moved back to Coventry from the Lake District, and I started a book group of friends who were like-minded. And from that, we've had lots of discussions about what it is to be 80 and suddenly have to rethink yourself, not because you feel different, but because you see people see you as different. So what I admire in Dulcie is her creativity and the book she's written. So I just wonder if Dulcie can talk about how it feels for her now. She went through a period in her life which stopped her writing.
Yeah, I've had a lot of time in my life, a lot of problems. I've gone from one problem to another, bankruptcy, the lot. And I think probably my escape has always been, I love nature. I like to be out in the wood with nobody else there, just with the trees and the plants. I lived in a cottage for a while on the borders of Lancashire and Cumbria, and I wrote a book there. I used to write for the AONB, an article every month, which is the area of natural beauty.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So I wrote down the walks that I did and the things that I saw, and that's my way, I think, of, it's me anyway, but it was my way of getting away from the reality of my life, which was difficult. So it's been an escape in a way. I'm now in the process of going through boxes and boxes of scraps of paper because I write on the back of a Kit Kat wrapper or a receipt or whatever's handy. I write maybe just one sentence.
Yeah.
They're like little scraps of thoughts, bodies without heads, that I'm trying to gather together and use before my family throw them on the scrap heap when I've gone, because I'm sure they won't go through it all. It's been an escape, I think, from reality. I don't like reality.
Well, what kind of things do you write down? What are you hoping to do with them?
I should have brought some scrap. One I found the other day, what did I say to you?
I can relate to this, Dulcie, because I collect now. Obviously, I've got a more modern method now, but I used to be the scraps of paper person, but now I use notes on my phone. But I've got all sorts, like just little snippets that come to mind at the time that you don't want to let go of.
They're important, aren't they? There are one or two on my phone, actually.
Yeah.
And I sit in cafes and listen. And
You're like me, you know, you really are. I can recognise myself here.
I've got some wonderful little gear.
Because it's everywhere, isn't it? Like lights and yeah.
It is. I'll have to find. I'm in the process of getting them all together. So this is a tremor I've got, by the way. I'm not nervous. It's a.
Is it?
It's they call it an essential tremor, and it's not essential.
It's not essential.
Which is one of the things that you found really difficult.
What is it?
And
Yeah, there's bound to be one in there. White convolvulus lacing the green hedgerows, tiny pink convolvulus edging the path. It was just little.
She's noticing something.
Yeah. Oh, and then there's the headline, "What's happening to my city? Where's the beauty gone?" And they like to call it progress.
That's a good one, isn't it?
Whether there's any more. And that's just a title with no body again. Stillness of an autumn wood.
They're just little observations, things that are significant to you, isn't it?
And we are ships that passed in the night, and you left lasting memories in your wake.
Yeah.
Odd things. Standing still quietly so as not to wake the bluebells. It's too early for them yet. Listening to the leaves gently letting go, falling to the ground like golden rain. Nothing but silence, birds and falling leaves.
Oh, I love that.
This was a poem that I wrote. It was the lockdown. There is silence. The world has stopped. There is fear. The enemy is unseen. This minute virus, beautiful in appearance, has halted the whole world. A long time ago when I was small, then there was noise. The world trembled. There was fear and sirens wailed. People ran and hid. Planes droned overhead, sounding like angry bees. Bombs dropped. People huddled in claustrophobic shelters. There was confusion. There was death. The world survived and became different. The world carried on. Now there is silence and fear and confusion, but the world will carry on. It will change. But change is a part of life. Change for the better. We can hope. There is always hope.
Wow.
That was one.
Oh, I'm glad you got your phone, Dulcie.
I never know what I've put in it.
Actually, one of the conversations that you and I have had quite recently, Dulcie, is how we keep that hope, how we move beyond what's happened to both of us with your health issues, and you lost your husband and your son, and how you actually get past all of that and carry on having something that really kind of motivates and gives you a purpose. And one of the nice things I've done with Dulcie is we visited certain places roundabout which would fit into your fairy books. Dulcie's written a series of books on where fairies live.
I'm known as Fairy Nan.
I like that.
My daughter's Nan, and they say I'm away with the fairies, so I'm Fairy Nan.
But you also write books about fairies.
I used to tell stories to my great-granddaughter when she was small over the phone, because I was in Cumbria.
Oh, that's nice.
And it was suggested that I maybe wrote them down, so I started to write them down. And when she was having problems at school or whatever, then I would make a story up. And then I read them in classrooms in Coventry. And little boys said, "Why haven't you got any boy fairies?" So I promised him I would write a story about boy fairies. So I created the elves, and then also the fairy, what was it called? The Goblin Catcher, the fairy Goblin Catcher. And read those, so, they're in one of the books.
Fantastic.
Yeah, that was wonderful. The children were very responsive, and I've got a folder full of all the letters that they wrote. I've kept them.
And we've done a few outings where we've gone round different places to identify where the fairies all live. And it's really kind of not about writing books about fairies. It's about re-establishing a purpose in your head that takes you out of the unpleasantness that you encounter in other areas of your life, where you come up against issues to do with your age, issues to do with not having the same mobility that you used to have. It's all about re-establishing how you can live with enjoyment in today's age and ignore some of the negatives.
It is. Like I said, it's an escape.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that you found really difficult was this tremor that you got.
Horrible.
The kind of reaction to it that you got when you went with your daughter to see a doctor.
Yes, because my daughter, she was a nurse, so she supervises, and she's brilliant. She really is. She's wonderful. But she took me to the doctor, and the doctor was asking questions which I was answering, but he was looking at my daughter. He was actually making eye contact with my daughter, but not me.
That's classic, isn't it?
It's really bad because you become invisible.
Yeah.
And you want to say to people, I've got all this in here, it's frustrating.
Yeah, it's still you.
Yeah. We went to, they wanted me to go to a gym through the NHS, which I didn't go because I didn't want to be, I was helping everybody else, and I thought, this is silly. But the girl who spoke to us when we went in, she was talking to my daughter, and that was fine. And then she spoke to me, but she didn't look at me. And she started to shout and enunciate.
Oh my goodness.
And I just said, I'm old, but I'm not deaf.
Yeah.
it's as if they stop seeing you as a person. You're just another old woolly head.
Well, we've had lots and lots of conversation about this, about how it is that you not only fight back, but how you preserve your own identity through all of this, and how you look for things that make your life purposeful, regardless of what attitudes you meet. And I think that's ended up the sort of essence of our book group.
Yes, it has, definitely.
We're the book group is a group of people with interesting lives who are all of a similar age to us. But we're all kind of experiencing the same. Some of them are only just starting to experience this, but some of us have been experiencing it for a while. But they're all very creative people. And I just think what Dulcie's achievements in the past in writing all these books, it would be a real achievement if you got back to doing that. So that it took you out of this kind of grief, loss thing. Like you had to move back to Coventry because of being widowed and being near your family, and how you re-established a life for yourself.
Which I've managed to do, but I'm still finding a barrier in that I want to walk and the woods are there, but I just started to go to one wood, and then I was told you shouldn't go on your own. You're not in Cumbria now, you're in Coventry.
That's sad.
And I've always walked on my own. And of course I'm struggling to walk now, which is more difficult. I'm having to use a stick when I walk, which I hate, really hate. Yeah, it's a problem. And it is this, it's like, how can I explain it? It's like I'm walking through mud, and I can see where I'm trying to get, and I want to start writing again,
Right.
but I can't motivate myself.
Because how do you, when things go wrong in your life, when you start to lose the bits of your life which has been essential to you, how do you work through that? And I can see that your stage is on from me in that you've had all these losses, but you're struggling through it. And I'm interested because I want to know, how do you move on from this?
How do you move on from this? You've still got to get up every morning.
Yeah.
You know, you've still got to. And the way I'm trying to do it now is because when I moved, I came here and went into hospital straight away. So my daughter and my granddaughter, who were absolutely amazing, packed up my home in Cumbria and managed to move me. And so I don't know where anything is. And after 4 years, I'm just starting now to get a grip with my study. I've been going through piles of stuff.
Heads, the bits of paper.
The heads and the bits of paper, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's hard.
And are you starting to feel that you want to write again?
Well, I'm starting to feel because I'm starting to cry. And I haven't cried since Brett died. My son was Brett, and he died in 2015.
Yeah, sorry.
And I haven't really worked through that. And then my husband died 3 years after, and then I moved 2 years after that. So it's been constant.
Almost 10 years of loss
and change. Yeah.
And then how do you have another life after that?
How do you have another life? I go for a walk in a wood and in the spring, but I've got to be able to do it.
Yeah.
So I'm fighting through the mud to do it.
Yeah.
And you've helped enormously because you've taken me to places. I actually wrote a story, didn't I?
You did. We had a lovely outing.
We did.
To
It was Maxstoke Castle, I think.
Maxstoke Castle. It was open one day a year, and we went around with an eye to where the fairy doors are.
Yeah. And one thing, they got one door labelled the secret door.
But it was really labelled the secret door.
It really was. It really was. So I went back home and just wrote a story.
Yeah, inspired by something. Yeah.
But I haven't written one since. I just cannot break through. What I'm hoping now is that by going through all these bits of paper in these folders, and believe you me, lots of folders, I'm going to start doing something, even if it isn't stories. I'm hoping to put together all the one-liners.
Yeah. Just a thought. You started off writing by actually writing biographically about your life as a child in Coventry.
I did.
Is there would it be too painful to write about what happened to you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I still can't. I've started it.
Yeah.
Years ago, the sequel. But I just can't go there. It's like looking into a pit of snakes.
Yeah.
I can't.
And perhaps, from what I'm hearing, the snippets that you've got and nature and so on, something more uplifting, the fairies and so on.
It takes you into a different dimension, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I felt a bit of that when we were doing this, because we had lots of laughs going round
We did.
Maxstoke Castle and a couple of other places, looking for the fairy doors and the entrances and saying, all these people who are the other tourists, they won't have a clue about the fairies living in...
No, not a clue.
And the good fairies and the bad fairies. And we actually got as far as thinking, how far can a fairy travel? And you came up with the birds, they're all...
Fairyland does that. That's what's so lovely about Fairyland, because all the things that I've wanted to do and I haven't been able to do, like ballet dancing, like going to see Petra, which has been the dream of my life, Fairyland's been, because she learned to fly.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
So yeah, so maybe it's that escapism that's kept me going. Even in a really bad experience, I can look down and see a leaf that the frost has edged, and in that moment, that's okay.
Just being in the moment. It's such a gift in life.
Yeah,
whatever's happening around you, or
there's always something. And animals, of course. I'm passionately fond of animals, as Dot knows.
Yeah.
And ever since I left home at 18, I've had animals. My mum couldn't cope with animals. So the first thing I did when I left home was have a dog and a cat. And I'm now to the point, this is another part of ageing that's awful. We had 8, my husband and I, Maine Coon cats. And he built a garden for them, so it was a cat garden, so they weren't out or a nuisance. When I moved, I'd got 5, and I wouldn't move without the cats. So my family, amazing again, built a cat room and a cat garden for me before I would move. And I'm now down to 2 because my cats are old.
Right.
And the awful knowledge is that once these 2 have gone, I can't have any more. And I can't imagine living without an animal.
Yeah,
And that's another part of ageing.
It is, isn't it? It's another part of loss, isn't it?
Yeah,
It's actually...
because you know that you can't...
Yeah.
You're too old to take on another animal.
I'd find that hard. And we've got a cat with us at the podcast, haven't we, Lola?
Yeah, we have Lola, and she's beautiful.
She's sleeping away.
And those are the kind of conversations we have about how do you continually motivate yourself and keep positive about life when all your experiences are loss. But they're not all your experiences. They are the big experiences, but there are lots of other experiences around which have been... I mean, you've got a lovely home since you moved down here. But it's just seeing whether that is enough to replace the loss of a kind of idealised existence in a very beautiful part of the country that was...
Yeah, I've rediscovered Coventry. I bought lots of books on Coventry.
Yeah.
Have you? Yeah.
And found some more as well while I was going through my things. So yes, I've rediscovered that. I'm curious. So
Yeah.
I always think, well, if I'm having a spell and I think, oh, I don't want to be here anymore, and what's the point? And I've lost this, I've lost that, I can't cope. And then I look at the family and I think, well, I won't know what they're doing if I go. You know,
Yes.
I'll lose. And so curiosity is a thing that tends to keep me going.
Yeah. Curiosity and actually still reaching out to be creative. Because I know from the conversations that we've had that you would really like to get into particularly the fairy books again.
I would. I like the fairy books because Fairy Nan can do anything, go anywhere, be all the things she wanted to be, never
Exactly.
managed.
It's almost like a virtual reality.
It is, yeah, it is. You know,
It's got so much potential. But
yeah.
one thing that I like to think that the podcast does is, and I think a big part of what I stand for, and obviously Dorothy, very similar, is making connections. And, I'm thinking people come up with different examples, different problems on the podcast. Who can help them? Who can help them? Who would they like to connect with? Yeah. And I mean, Dorothy's obviously
This is
been
what Doc's
amazing
done for me.
Yeah. And you do it so naturally, Dorothy. But I'm also thinking, I think when we met up the first time, Dulcie, in Coventry, I can't help mentioning this guy. So to mention him live on the podcast, but one of the great connections that I did make through our shared time, Dorothy, at Coventry City Council, was Aaron Ashmore. Now, he's now writing books with his son on Coventry, what it's like to be in Coventry, the child growing up in Coventry, and basically to promote the city. And he does quite a lot of work in schools. Now, I can't help thinking that could be an exciting link. But I'm also in danger of overstepping the mark and taking you into something that you might not want to go into, or perhaps it's not the right stage. But have a think about that opportunity.
I'm very open to opportunities. Anything that's another avenue that opens up. And I think that's another way of coping with being old.
And staying positive about life.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. I meet, just by kind of chatting to anybody that comes across, I'm open to any kind of invitation or
that's right.
opening. And the several groups I'm involved with, there are always people that introduce you to another aspect of life that you hadn't.
It is. It's like a necklace of beads.
The message is, don't say no to anything.
Yeah. I had a notice pinned on my board once. Never say no. Or always say yes.
Yes.
And I can remember saying, that could get you into trouble.
But it's a great philosophy for life, isn't it? Because the chances are something good and exciting will come from it rather than
That's right.
not doing it,
I mean, how lucky can I be? I came here and left all that. But Jean is a friend that I've known, well, we met in social services all those years ago. And the book that I'd written, Paradise to Eden, had already made its way to the book group, hadn't it?
Yes. Yeah.
So it was natural for me to go to the book group where I reconnected with Dot.
Right, yeah. And if you hadn't gone, you wouldn't have.
That's right. So one thing leads to another, and that, I think, is what keeps you going.
And I have to confess to being a born organiser.
Yeah, organise me.
I could see instantly that as a group of older people, the book group was partly about discussing books, but it was also about expanding your experiences as much as we could, or keeping the experiences that we've all had in our lives and trying to build on them so that you still maintained a purpose in life. And the older we get, that is more and more important, isn't it?
It is very important.
So, this book group, we now do many outings. A lot of them.
I think we need a retitle.
I think you should talk about your music.
I've got a baby grand.
Have you?
I've always played the piano, always. It used to get locked when I played up.
That was your punishment.
That was my punishment.
And one of the things I remember knowing about you was how you used to play the piano in some fancy big house in the Lake District.
To create
ambience.
Yes, I played in a few concerts at Leighton Hall.
Did you?
And again, age comes into it because I've had operations on my thumbs, and I've got arthritis, and I've got a tremor. It's as if everything sets out when you're old to beat you. I used to make cakes with intricate little roses and things on, and I just couldn't now.
Right.
So
Yeah.
age keeps throwing these things at you, and then you just have to find a way around it. And I'm still playing, but not the way I did. But I've got this lovely great-grandson who is now nearly 18, and he has suddenly developed this love in music. He played on his phone. He said, what's this music, Nan? And I said, that's Beethoven. Beethoven? Which is wonderful. So he will come and he'll fiddle about on the piano, and he's picking things up from his phone. So I can't help him with that. But then he'll say, right, before I come next time, play that. So I'm having to pull out music that I've not managed. And I'm supposed to be practicing every day. I don't, because I never did. I'm very bad at discipline. That is another reason you've seen something that is helping me,
Yes.
as well as Ollie.
An encouragement from others, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
And perhaps a bit of a challenge, practice every day or...
That's right, and when he comes in, he says, have you done it?
I just had this lovely thought. You know how some of the very big stations, like the one that's got the Eurostar in it, and Glasgow, Edinburgh Station, they've got pianos and people go and
I
sit
know.
there. I'm sure Coventry Station ought to have a grand piano.
They will get a piano at Coventry Station. There's one at Euston.
They ought to, haven't they?
Yeah.
Yeah. When you actually start and kind of ditch some of the constraints that stopped you expanding what you could do, there are all sorts of opportunities that people don't think about that could just make life pleasanter all round.
Yeah.
And actually having music, a live music experience in stations. I've heard it in Edinburgh Station. I've heard it. What's the one that goes to Eurostar Station? King's Cross.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've got one there. And it just lightens the atmosphere. And then the most amazing people go and sit and play.
People that you just wouldn't expect.
Yeah, exactly. And likewise, where they have people who are painting and drawing and doing kind of things that attract people just to stand and stare. That is so part of adding...
It is. It's adding the colour to life.
Yeah, exactly.
I love this strand on creativity, and I think what's really striking me is I've just published the episode with Dr. Goody Singh, and we're talking about creativity in the arts with young people. It doesn't change, does it? And your love of music.
No.
And perhaps you can't be a concert pianist, but you can still play.
Exactly.
Your grandson's doing well to encourage you.
He
It
is.
strikes me, having worked in social services and traipsed in and out of umpteen institutions all my working life, if they only had, I'm thinking of even now, I'm visiting people in old people's homes in and around Coventry, some of them very posh. If they had the facility of somebody to go and play the piano, be live painting in their foyers, that would make it so much more inviting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I used to play the piano in a couple of old people's homes.
Did you?
Again in Penrith.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was wonderful because although a lot of them can't remember a lot of things, they can remember the music.
Yes.
And I played some Christmas music, carols and things. And when the carers came to wheel people back to their rooms, one old lady left in a chair waiting, and she was very quietly singing Silent Night.
Yeah.
And she'd remembered it all, and they said, she hardly talks, but she could remember Silent Night.
Music unlocks.
Yeah.
It does,
Yeah.
definitely.
And when you think about it, it's something so basic. And there aren't many institutions that I go into now that have anything like that in their entrances.
No, they don't, do they?
I mean, even when you think about it, it takes a step further, even the hospitals.
Barking, Havering and Redbridge, I seem to remember, had a piano as as I came in. I think they've got some kind of area outside, perhaps some shops. It's a long time ago. But it's the sort of thing that sticks with you, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's someone's playing, and instead of worry about your hospital appointment, you're distracted.
Yeah.
In fact, music therapy has been quite a theme of the podcast. And I did what I think is a wonderful episode with Professor Kath Crock from Melbourne in Australia. And Kath is a paediatrician who basically was disturbed really by some of the procedures they had to do with children and how to make it as manageable as it could be, and through music. So it is probably not the best summary, but she's set up something called the Gathering of Kindness, and she's coming to Cork in Ireland in May, and I'm hoping to be there. So some of that's connection directly through music.
Yeah.
And I know with our maternity work, there was a lovely, lovely story of, I think it was Claire Flower, who's a music therapist at Chelsea and Westminster Hospital, playing in the antenatal clinic, which is unusual because music therapy is more associated with children and obviously resources and so on. And then one of the women who was waiting, and again, if I've got this story right, turned out to be a sort of grade 8 violinist and came and played with her the next time. And the people waiting would have that wonderful, lovely experience.
Absolutely. And it just taking that one step further, and you think how many volunteers there are in a big hospital. I bet you a lot of those volunteers are musical. I bet you if there was an opportunity where they could have people who were violin players, piano players, whatever.
It's all these other facets to people that you don't know unless people start to talk.
Yes.
And then you find out what people do.
And it takes the bureaucracy out of being institutions into pleasant places to go to.
Exactly. And takes people's mind away from something unpleasant.
Yeah.
And gives them that little bubble. Little bubble of
joy.
Joy.
Yeah. And the NHS will have a way of putting a name on it that perhaps takes some of the joy out of it. I don't know.
Yeah,
but
probably.
Social prescribing. So I got very into social prescribing at one point because social prescribing is basically taking the stuff that people have done for years. I can see Dorothy getting exciting.
Well, no, it just reminded me. I've just remembered I joined a singing group.
Were you socially prescribed to your singing?
No, but it is social.
How dare you? How dare you?
No, two things occur to me. One is I was invited, because I'm in a singing group which runs locally in the area I'm in, with a load of people who actually, like me, can't sing, but the teacher's brilliant, so she helps us to sing. On the back of that, we got some information about a local authority funded Sing for Health in Bedworth.
Okay.
And we went along to the community introduction to this in a community centre, and the guy who's running it said we were his third session. First time he got 3 people, and the second time I don't know how many he got, but when we went there were 18 of us, and I've invited half my book group. And his plan is starting off going around different community centres all around Bedworth, and we were very enthusiastic, so I can't imagine other people aren't. And then he's going to establish this as a big choir in Bedworth Civic Hall for Christmas.
Fantastic.
And I've now looked into it, and it's actually funded by Warwickshire County Council, and they've got Warwick as a singing town already, and they're hoping to make Bedworth into this singing town. It was an hour of just joining in joyfully into making rhythmic sounds.
It's wonderful.
Yeah. I know you really
love them because I went to the choir, the Coventry Philharmonic, when I came here, but I've had to opt out because I can't hold the music. I kept dropping it and, stuff like this.
And the transport in the evenings becomes very difficult when you get old.
Yeah, again, the fear of losing your licence.
Fear of losing your driving licence, but also not wanting to be driving in dark places where you don't know. And just being able to go out easily. And I know that's one of the big conversation points in our group. We all talk about how do we keep going to all this stuff which is interesting and enlightening and purposeful, because the transport systems don't work properly.
Yeah, and stopped early evening.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you can't rely on getting back.
Yeah. And we've all talked about having Ubers, an Uber app on our phone.
And not used it.
Not used to it.
Which is great, but then again, you've got to be able to afford it, haven't you? And perhaps have the technical knowledge to be able to get an Uber. Yeah.
One of the things that I've found that we've done in our book group is, from being people who went distances to actually take part in concerts and art exhibitions or theatre things, we've all kind of started to shrink and look for locality-based stuff.
Yes.
Warwick Arts is a good place.
Yeah. I was amazed at this initiative by Warwickshire County Council to start this Singing Towns thing, which we're going to link into.
Yes.
Yeah, they go. You feel that one coming on.
Yes.
To hear that they're doing that, and you hear about all the cuts and there's no money for anything, and that's, you know, what terrifies me is those are exactly the sort of things that disappear, but they're the things that really, really make the difference.
They're what make people... Not having anything to do and anything to go for makes people housebound.
It does.
Lonely, depressed.
And then they switch off, and then they lose their mental capacity for doing anything because they're not necessarily. Yeah.
Yeah, it's mental and physical, isn't it?
Oh, it is,
You know,
definitely.
people aren't going out and about at least a bit, you know, you're not using your body.
Yeah, exactly.
It's losing your independence, isn't it? And losing your identity.
Yeah, it is, absolutely. Absolutely.
And I think an important theme that we've touched upon several times, which again has been, I haven't done it as much as I'd like to, but when I have, it's been brilliant, like a bit of a theme of my work. And thinking about it, I'm sure you were involved, Dorothy, when we did that project with, I think it was East Midlands Housing Association, and it was an intergenerational project. And they got older people to come into schools and just chat and do some artwork. So it was an art-based project with perhaps 10-year-olds that, you know, the end of primary school. And I remember there was one little boy who bonded so much with the guy who came in. And basically, as I remember it, the older person didn't have any grandchildren and the boy didn't have grandparents, or if he did, they weren't near. And, you know, some of those links. And I think when I heard you talking about sending not just stories, but really practical stories, personal stories, creative stories to your granddaughter to help her through certain things. Tell us a little bit more about that, because I'm fascinated. I'd love to think I'd do the same for my granddaughter.
It's my great granddaughter. She's now 22, but she used to talk to me on the telephone, ring me up, and I'd ask her what was going on, and she was having trouble at one time, and it's something I identify with because she didn't like being told what to do. And just like I was, she let them know she didn't, you know. And I thought about it afterwards, and we talked. They call me Fairy Nan, as I say. Oh, they did. They don't say it now. They're grown up.
It's a shame, though. It's a lovely, lovely concept, isn't it?
I sat and wrote a story about this fairy who was in the fairy school, and it helped. It helped Darcy a lot at the time. To do her to conform, I think. I've got ready for it all. You know, think one thing and do another.
Learn how to fit in with the system.
That's right.
Yeah.
You recognise these problems that they're getting, because I was dreadful at school.
Yes, yeah.
And didn't like being late. Oh, I still don't like being told what to do, but I've learnt now to modify it.
You just said a phrase which I kind of rebel against. Learn how to fit in.
Yes.
We're having to go through that again.
Well, we are, aren't we?
You learn how to fit in as a child,
And then you learn how to fit in as an old lady.
that's exactly it.
Then it's this, well, I'm not going to do this.
Yeah,
I've
that's
got a very, very nice net skirt. It's frilled and it's just the sort of thing I love. And I said to my great-granddaughter the other day, I'm going to wear that.
Yeah,
And I thought, no, you shouldn't. You know, you're pushing 90. You shouldn't.
Is it purple as well, do you see?
It's a lovely pale denim.
Is it?
Yeah.
With frills. It doesn't
It's
sound...
frilled. It's frilled all the way down, and it's net.
It sounds horrific.
It's beautiful. I feel like a fairy in it.
Oh dear.
You have to wear that to visit your castles.
Actually, that is a kind of summing up, really.
Yeah.
That you have to learn all over again to fit in.
You do, and by doing that, they still say to me, "You shouldn't be wearing jeans,"
Which you're wearing today. And
which
you
I always
look
wear.
super.
Yeah, and I love jeans, and I'm comfortable in jeans. So
Who tells you you
Really?
can't wear jeans?
I've got a certain friend who is very critical about the dress. We've known each other since we were at school, and she's a very, very dear friend, but she does not approve of.
Goodness.
The family don't. They upset me, but they're very similar. You see, my daughter, my granddaughter, my great granddaughter. We're all sort of rather rebellious, I think.
Yeah.
So they accept it.
Actually, one of the things I find nice about today is you can wear anything you like.
My daughter keeps saying,
Yeah.
you wear what you want to wear. which was-
Absolutely. And I think clothes are so comfortable these days. When I think what my parents, grandparents wore, clothes are so comfortable. I'm going to take advantage of everything that's
Oh, yeah.
comfortable to wear, because you can get such lovely casual clothes, can't you now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay, I think we need to pull it together. But Dorothy, I think we need to give a shout out, don't we, to When I Get Old. And I've hooked you into that really through the episode I recorded with Angela Catley. And they're an interesting bunch, aren't they?
Very much so. Yes, I was really taken with the Zoom meeting that I listened to. Yeah.
And somehow by accident, I seem to have got myself on the advisory group. And I thought, well, I don't want to be on the advisory group without Dorothy because she knows a lot more than I do. So we rocked up together, didn't we? It was a double act.
So we did.
And you've got some good ideas, I think. So this is serious, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Doing that Zoom meeting coincided with me listening to a talk the day before by a local hospice for babies. And when this group were talking about models of care for the future, it just seemed to me to shout, really, that the hospice model, not you would have to call it something else, but this hospice caters for 50 people from really, really sick to supporting the family to not being quite so sick and having a whole load of therapists that can go out into the community, and it's flexible enough to actually have people in for respite care from anything from a morning to a week or whatever's needed. And I just thought how much nicer it would be if your local old people's homes, which are generally institutions where you go in and sit, had a facility where they could adapt themselves to this hospice model. You could call it whatever you like, where you're linked into it for what you need. Because a lot of people don't need it all the time.
Yes.
A lot of people end up in old people's homes because they're not functioning at the time.
Yeah, fall or something.
Yeah, they fall. And it could be so much more flexible if there were no restrictions on how long once you were linked into them, you could continue to have links and help and even volunteer yourself to help, but take part in the opportunities. I mean, I just think there's so much that could be developed around that model.
Yeah.
I mean, no doubt you'd end up with some kind of permanent residential care side attached to it, but it could be minimised by having a facility that took people in for short periods. People went out into the community, a combination of voluntary groups, professional carers, professional nurses, whatever, therapists. I just think that could be so much better than the kind of static, institutionalised.
You're either at home struggling or you're moved and you're in a care home.
I just think there's such opportunities to consider a model like that.
And it's got me thinking, as you always do, and like Myton Hospice, local to us here, it's fantastic, but it's for people with cancer. It was an amazing end of life for my mum, but I found out far more about it than I knew. So people have got very stereotyped views of hospices, and I found out they did day activities and they did different therapies and they did things that really help people far beyond just residential end of life care.
You've just made me think there are organisations around that do just this for specific issues. Like there was a place out at Leamington that was very specifically around people with multiple sclerosis that did it. I just think that model could be adapted for people in general, not condition specific.
Yes, it's all condition specific.
It's condition specific. And what should be adapted
people specific.
Is people specific. And actually, when you start to think about it, there's actually no limits to how it could encompass. It would just take a bit of imagination in who you employed and how you use the space within it to accommodate all sorts of, people with conditions that need that kind of care, but just people who are aging, who need care. If it was much more flexible in its approach, that could actually be a really good model for future care.
Much more creative.
And
That's right.
thinking in the place of the budget holder, a bit of what we were talking about earlier on, people who donate to specific conditions, there could be opportunities for fundraising around specific conditions. And people now already contribute to cancer care, don't they?
Yeah.
They contribute to care for people with multiple sclerosis. They contribute to people with all sorts of other syndromes. If you had a non-specific facility that catered for all of those people, there could be access to that kind of fundraising and the money that's donated if it was set up with imagination in the first place.
So we've got lemon light mums flying around the room now over these exciting ladies in their 80s telling us the future.
You and I, in our 80s, you're 88, I'm 83 this year, we're the kind of recipients of what's going to happen to us, aren't we? There's going to be an old people's home that somebody shunts us into. Now, if there was already something that was set up that we could feel happy to go to now, where you might go and play the piano in the foyer, and I don't know what I would do, but anyway, form a book group,
Start a cafe club,
right? Where you actually are part and parcel of a community that ultimately,
In other words, pour life into it.
and not one of these village communities where everybody goes and lives together, who are all kind of declining, which we don't want to go into. No.
So one lemon light bulb each. What's your sort of final message to whoever's listening to our slightly off-piste podcast? What are we going to do?
Mine is be more imaginative about how care is offered. And I can see how it could actually appeal to the people who are in it for profit.
Yes.
The people who set up these chains, they could actually be more imaginative and put their money into it as well.
And pull in volunteers that they don't necessarily need to pay for.
Yes. Yeah.
What about you,
And
Dulcie?
what's mine? Be more curious and keep your mind open for opportunities.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And that applies to everyone, doesn't it? Everyone.
It does.
So it's the older people themselves, isn't it? You've got to be looking out. And what was it you said, I think before we started, that if you get offered an opportunity, what do you say, Dulcie?
Yes.
You say yes.
Always say yes.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, well, thank you so much. I think it's been a really interesting conversation. We're going to go and get a bit of lunch now, aren't we?
Thank you, Jill.
Thank you, Jill.
Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, it would be fantastic if you would leave a review and a rating, as well as recommending the Wildcard Hooshes podcast series to anyone who you think might find it interesting. And please subscribe. That way you get to hear when new episodes are available. I have lots more wonderful podcast guests in the pipeline. And don't forget to explore and share previous episodes. So many conversations with amazing people who are courageously sharing their stories and experiences across a very wide range of topics. I tweet as Whose Shoes. Thank you for being on this journey with me, and let's hope that together we can make a difference. See you next time.